Welcome to episode 4 of Eye on Horror. I'm one of your hosts, James J. Edwards, and with me yet again is Jacob Davison. How you doing, Jacob?
Doing okay. Fighting off a bit of a head cold, but happy to be here.
Oh, that's a drag. When I got that flu, it took me out for like 3 weeks. So I hope it is just a head cold and not the flu. And joining us from the road, as always, the eternal road warrior, somewhere in South Carolina this time, John Correa. How you doing, John?
Doing well in South Carolina, defeating preteen girls in laser tag. You know, just defending my title there. Yeah,
defending your title.
Yeah, I think I did Johnny Rico proud by shouting Starship Troopers at them all night. You know, I got shot once and started screaming medic, and this little girl went, "Oh, you're just shouting for no reason." I was like, "I've been shot. Go grab me a medic."
Did they know what Starship Troopers even was?
No, the referees apparently loved me because as soon as we walked in, I'm like screaming, "We're going to destroy them. We're going to destroy any chances they have of going to college." And these kids are like cheering on. And yeah, I made quite the ruckus at Frankie's Fun Zone in Greenville, South Carolina. Shout out to Frankie's.
All right, so it's been kind of an eventful couple of weeks. The big news, the big sad news, is the cancellation just announced of Ash vs. Evil Dead.
Yep. R.I.P.
Yeah. We knew it was coming because Bruce Campbell actually said, look, if you guys don't start watching this, if you don't start... Actually, I think he was saying if you don't start paying to watch it, if you don't, if you don't start subscribing to Starz, if you don't start, subscribing to Hulu... And he even gave a list. I don't know if it was an interview or something, but he gave a list of the legal ways you can watch Ash vs. Evil Dead. But it's still, I think, Korea, I think you were saying it's the second most downloaded show, the second most pirated show. I mean, I know Game of Thrones is first.
Yeah.
But HBO kind of doesn't care, I think. I mean, I get the impression HBO doesn't care. But Ash vs. Evil Dead, I mean, Starz is the same subscription model as HBO, but it's not nearly as big, and apparently they do care.
Well, Starz doesn't have, this is just my opinion, from what I've seen and from what I've read, and just my general experience of being subscribed to both HBO Go and Starz's streaming app, is that, honestly, HBO has more for it. They have all the classic shows. I mean, you can go on there, watch Sopranos, The Wire, like all these greats. And Starz doesn't quite have that. Like, they have a lot of really good series and a lot of good movies, but HBO definitely has them beat. So them acquiring shows that are niche, like Ash vs. Evil Dead, is trying to drive it up. And so if they're not seeing that kind of give back, that any type of, surge in that, why would they keep producing this show? And that's what it comes down to. And that's why piracy was so huge. I mean, we literally had a beautiful show, and I'm going to keep saying it. It's a fucking awesome show. If you haven't watched it, first 2 seasons are on Netflix. Don't feel shameful if you haven't watched it. Should feel a little bad, but you're going to discover it, and it's going to be great. The real people that we want to call out are the pirators, because there's a difference between being a fan of the show and watching it and supporting it in that way, and a fan who actually puts their money there. Now, I never subscribed to an actual Starz because I don't have cable, but I bought each season. As soon as it came out on Blu-ray, it was in my possession. Like, pre-order, I already have season 3 pre-ordered from Best Buy. And so that's what it comes down to, is supporting what you love, because it's not going to last forever. I mean, this show went from being, instantly renewed for a second season before it even premiered to being canceled by its 3rd season. Like, what the fuck? The only thing that can possibly have that much of an effect is either a sex scandal, which there was never any, because that's just not going to happen with this cast that we know of. But it's because of ratings, and it being the second most pirated show out there is honestly kind of disgusting. These fans should be supporting the shows that they love. If not, we're going to see, that's why shows like this get canceled. It's why Hannibal got canceled. It's why Firefly. Those had more like Also, time slots and changes. And I understand Ash vs. Evil Dead went on a little bit of got delayed with their filming, which is why it didn't come out till this year. But even still, you should be supporting what you love, because if that support isn't there, now people are harassing stars. They're saying, "Oh, it should go to Netflix. Oh, it should go to this." It's like, no, it's done. Like, that's it. We had our shot. We had our chance. Bruce Campbell said that if this show gets canceled, that's it. Ash is retired. We're not getting any more of Ash or any of them. Hopefully someday we'll get Fede Alvarez's sequel to his Evil Dead. That'd be great. But as of right now, Bruce Campbell as Ash is dead. And it's because not enough people went out and supported the show and instead pirated it. And it's sad, but it's true.
I thought I was going to be the one to get on my soapbox with this, but you pretty much said it right there. It's what really is sad to me about these, and we're probably losing 3/4 of our listeners right here. They're like, "Oh, I don't want to listen to this." But what upsets me about pirates is that they think it's a victimless crime. And this is an example of how it isn't. All the people who worked on the show, all the stars of the show, I mean, by it being canceled directly as a result of piracy, you're not just giving the middle finger to stars. It's Bruce Campbell himself, down to the guy who drives him around on set. All of these people are now out of work. And I remember seeing somewhere on Twitter, Joe Lynch it was either for Everly or Mayhem, but he got a residual check, and all he tweeted was something like I now can say with firsthand knowledge that piracy affects the filmmaker, and he was pissed because he probably got like a $3 residual check on a movie that everybody on Twitter had seen and was complimenting. So, I mean, it's not a victimless thing. Ask the director who doesn't get to make another movie because nobody saw his first one. Ask the cast and crew that are out of work because their show got canceled. I mean, these are not victimless crimes.
No, of course. And I understand there's the argument of people archiving, material that isn't readily available because it's not on VHS, it's not on DVD, it's not on Blu-ray. I understand that.
Gray market titles. It's like when a movie's is so obscure it's either only on VHS or was never put on DVD or is in some kind of legal limbo, like Fright Night 2.
I mean, maybe it's hypocritical of me, but yeah, I own a bootleg version of the one and only season of Freaky Links. Remember Freaky Links from about 20 years ago?
I love
that
Freaky
Fox
Links.
Show. It's never been released legitimately by, Fox never released that. So I actually had to buy a gray market title of it. I will be the first one to pre-order that shit when they release. They're not going to, because it's a 20-year-old show that probably only I care about, unless you all raise a stink. You might be able to find it on YouTube. Go watch a few episodes of Freaky Links. If we get enough people to want Freaky Links...
Okay, we've got a new mission statement for the podcast. Get Freaky Links on Blu-ray and DVD.
Yes.
Let's get a legit, because even the bootleg I got it, I think it even has the little sci-fi logo. It was recorded off reruns.
No, and I fully agree. I mean, Jacob's been over to my house. He's seen my bootleg of the complete Drew Carey Show series, and that's never gonna. Those later seasons are never gonna get released, but every physical copy that I can get that's readily available, I've bought from sellers that are legitimate, like Amazon. I got the Fan Favorites DVD that has like 5 or 6 episodes. I got the first season. Hell, I even got like a sweatshirt and like a few other things I bought to show my support for the show I love. But it's just that's gray market. Ash vs. Evil Dead or any other show that's currently on the air and is depending on ratings is not that case. That is pure pirating. That is taking money away from people who actually that need the support at that time. And even grassroots efforts of like with Freaky Leaks or Links, they even that can help. And there have been articles about like how gray marketing is helping archiving stuff that wouldn't be saved because no one's putting the money into saving these episodes. And some titles have been saved by that. From what I heard, a lot of like the Cabal cut of Nightbreed was saved because people kept VHS copies of ripped VHS copies. Same with, the South Park's original little short that they did, Merry Christmas, all of that is saved because of that. But that's, again, saving stuff that wasn't available. You can subscribe to Stars. It's not expensive. Yeah. You can watch it on Netflix when it hits Netflix. You can watch shows when they hit Hulu, and those numbers still get attached to it. Just support your fucking shows if you like them.
That's a thing that, that if you really like something, you need to put your money where your mouth is and support it while it's active. Otherwise, it's going to end real quick. Because if you're a fan and you only pirated Asher's Evil Dead and you're disappointed there's not going to be another season, then it's on you because you pirated it.
Now, we're not, the people who did legitimately go out and subscribe to, because I've been seeing a lot of that online on Facebook and Twitter, people who are saying, well, I'm going to cancel my Starz subscription. You know what? Cancel it, because first of all, this is going to show Starz that people do care about the show. But also, I mean, if that's the only reason you subscribed, which I imagine it probably is for a lot of people, yeah, I mean, you're not who our vitriol right now is being directed at. We are, there are the people who, it's the same with the people who download Game of Thrones, Now, Game of Thrones I don't know if it has actually been hurt by, it's been hurt by piracy, but I don't think HBO cares. I think that when it ends, it is going to end. I don't think it is being...
Well, it's in its final season.
Yes, and I don't think that's because people aren't paying for the show. I think HBO, like John said, I think HBO's got enough other stuff. I mean, just between Sex and the City and The Sopranos, they probably have enough back catalog to get people to subscribe, to their, especially the apps, HBO Go and HBO Now. Because if I actually subscribe to HBO, so I have HBO Go, which is what you get when you are a subscriber. And my wife and I discovered she wanted to go back and watch something that isn't even that old, not as old as The Sopranos, but it wasn't just on demand on our cable. We actually had to install the HBO Go app on her Roku, and she had to go back and do it that way. But I mean, with HBO, there's a lot more content there, so that's why I think they don't care. With Starz, it's just pure economics. If a show is not making its money back, I mean, I hate to say it, but there are no patrons in Hollywood. There's no one who's going to say, I'm going to fund this show just because I love it. No. I mean, the guys with the suits, that's not how they think. Let's move on to something a little more positive. Unless, do you guys have anything else to say about this?
No, I already called everyone an asshole, so I think I'm good.
All right, so also this week, there's a lot... Well, first of all, just a quick mention, and then we'll move on. More 3 from Hell news. They have wrapped filming. So that didn't take long. Maybe 6 weeks? So 3 from Hell is, if you haven't been listening to us for, talk about it, it's basically the sequel / I don't know if the sequel, prequel, or extended universe to Devil's Rejects from Rob Zombie. Anyway, they have wrapped filming, and related to that, we've discussed 3 from Hell enough, so we're going to move on to something else we've discussed a lot, but there's a lot of news about it this week. Halloween.
Yes.
Yes.
Jason Blum has seen a rough cut of Halloween, and we don't know how that went, but there's something for them to work with. The other big thing that happened, one of the other big things that happened, is we saw a poster. Did you guys both see the poster?
Yes.
It's kind of interesting because it looks like the mask has aged 40 years. I mean, that mask has crow's feet and wrinkles and all.
I was thinking they were just going to use a modern face mold of William Shatner's face.
Which I thought they did. I thought it looked exactly like William Shatner's face now.
Now, yeah.
No, as cool as that poster was, I couldn't help but feel like it was an alternate poster for Rob Zombies, because in Rob Zombies we saw an aged mask. In Rob Zombies it was called Halloween, so I'm a little taken back and going like, why is it just called Halloween? And it's a cool looking poster, but I think it was Jamie Lee Curtis said something in an interview or something where she said it should be called like Halloween Redone or something, which I think would be fucking cool, but that's just me.
The interesting thing people pointed out with the poster, not sure if you guys saw, is like that it seems like Michael's missing an eye based off of when he was stabbed in the eye from the original.
I did not notice that.
Because supposedly this one's going to skip even Halloween 2.
Good.
Yep, fresh start.
I don't know how they're going to deal with the absence of Donald Pleasance, but I'm sure they'll figure something out.
I'm actually... I know I'm one of the few, but I'm kind of glad that they're retconning even Halloween 2, because that's where they introduced like the Celtic supernatural bit a little bit. Even the whole, oh, it turns out Laurie is his estranged sister, which was like, oh shit, that's a cool twist. But also nowadays it seems a little contrived a little bit. So I kind of like that they're going back to what the first movie was all about, which is this guy who wears this creepy mask and he's stalking some random teenagers. There's no motivation. Even when they show him as a kid, there's no reason given to why he murdered his sister. And that was always, to me at least, the scariest part of the original Halloween was, and I had a high school teacher, shout out to G-Love, say this, but he was like, that was the scariest part of Halloween, was that it could happen anywhere. This is the kid next door. And so if they're going back to that, only 40 years into the future, and like, yeah, he's going after like the victim that got away, like that's cool, but like taking away that motivation that it's his sister and he's got some weird like murder Oedipus complex thing with his family. I don't fucking know what the Freudian term for it is, but if they're going back to that, color me excited. That's for certain.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. Like, a lot of people, I think, were upset that they were kind of scaling back the continuity. But honestly, after like several movies and plots going all over the place, it's better to simplify and kind of take a step back. And well, we don't really know that much about the plot of this one, but it seems like they're going back to form.
Well, yeah. Let's make Michael scary again.
Yeah.
And you guys remember what the real scariest part of the original Halloween is the music. And that was another big piece of news this week. It's been a busy week for Halloween news. John Carpenter has confirmed, or maybe Blumhouse confirmed it, but Carpenter is doing the score.
Thank fuck.
Most of the Halloween movies just have that same motif. It's been redone and reshuffled and stuff. So I don't know how much actual original music we'll get, or if it's just going to be just reworkings of that theme. That theme has got to be there. There's no way you can have a Halloween movie. Even Rob Zombie realized that. There's no way you can have a Halloween movie without that theme. So it remains to be seen how much new music we'll get. New in quotes, because the whole thing is going to be new imaginings of it, I'm sure. But yeah, the master is doing the music.
I'm still hoping that he brings on Atticus Ross and Trent Reznor to do the complete score, because again, that remix they released last Halloween was fucking, well, not, was it last Halloween? It was one of the previous Halloweens. Was
it might have been
amazing.
2 ago.
Yeah, I re-listened to that on the road the other day, and I was, oh man, especially when it turned into a club mix, I was like, all right, I can fucking dig this. I usually hate club mixes.
Wait, there's a Halloween themed club mix?
Basically, it kind of turns into one at a certain point.
At like 5 or 6 minutes in, there's a minute that you could loop, and it's it's what they're bumping in the clubs.
Michael goes clubbing.
Yeah, I'm sure there's been at least a few drag shows that were set to that around Halloween in LA. I wouldn't doubt that for a moment.
I'd be surprised that every dance club on Halloween night didn't bump that, because it was genius. When it kicks into that club thing, it is genius.
Yeah.
What other? Do we have any other news? There is one other sad thing. Vern Troyer, only tangentially horror related, but Vern Troyer passed.
Still worth noting, but yeah, no, just R.I.P.
Yeah, that's I know he had gotten sick about a week before, and he had been in and out of the hospital, for various things over the years. But it's sad. It's a sad day.
Yeah, especially since of recent, like he did kind of become a punching bag on the internet with the photos of him with the Subway sandwich, which I'll admit I laughed at. But he also was trying to do good and like had a YouTube page where he was like addressing a lot of personal issues in a very public manner, which I thought was very, very interesting and very proud. So like, definitely rest in peace. Like, he was an interesting guy, that's for certain.
Do we have any other news happening, or?
I was about to say, on that happy note,
Do we have a subgenre of the bye week, Jacob?
Yes, we do.
Let's do it.
This bye week's pick is When Animals Attack.
When Animals Attack.
Yeah. Thank you.
Act. Nice. So what are some choice animal attack movies from you, Jacob?
All right. Well, I'm going with the obvious one here and the overall classic, Jaws, which is not only one of the greatest animal attacks movies, but also in general one of the greatest horror movies ever made. It's the killer shark movie that started them all. And, what can I say about Jaws that hasn't already been said? It's generally terrifying, and it made a whole generation afraid to go into the water.
That it did, and we're hoping that Meg continues that tradition when that comes out later this summer, right?
Yeah, no, that was the other reason that prompted this subgenre particularly. Saw the new trailer for The Meg, and I'm not 100% sold, but I am feeling fairly positive about it now. Looks like it's got a cast. That shark does generally look pretty scary, and they got the whole thing with all the people on spring break or whatever, and the giant, 70-foot shark heading right toward them. So, I'm pretty interested, and it looks like it could have some good scares in it. So, it's definitely on my list.
One of my earliest cinematic memories is my mom used to take my sister and I to the movies, because it was cheap. I mean, this is the 70s. It was probably $1.50. I think because it was air conditioned. Is honestly why. But I remember we went to a double feature of Orca and Grizzly.
Yes.
Oh, nice.
Those are two of my favorites.
This is like little 6-year-old Jay, too. So I actually brought my little Shamu stuffed animal to see Orca. But Orca is, if you haven't seen it, it's basically a Jaws rip, but it's way more melodramatic and way more disturbing. It is, it's kind of like the Moby Dick thing, where the man against whale. And I think it's Richard Harris, if I'm not mistaken, is the lead in it. But it's disturbing because there's a scene like at the beginning where basically there's a reason why this whale has singled out Richard Harris. It's a revenge thing, but it's kind of just your typical Jaws rip when everybody was doing Jaws rips. But Grizzly, which actually Grizzly is more of a Jaws rip because it's Jaws on land, but Grizzly is still one of my favorite Nature Gone Wild movies of all time. William Girdler's Grizzly. If you haven't seen Grizzly, track it down and watch it immediately. They use a real bear, which is totally awesome.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. It's so good.
Yeah, and I think it's getting a Blu-ray release sometime this year. I'm not sure if it's through Code Red or one of those. I don't remember exactly what the brand was, but I do know there will be a new Blu-ray of it this year. You
know what else is getting a Blu-ray, speaking of animal attack movies, is one of my personal favorites, Night of the Lepus.
Oh, yeah!
If you guys, well, I'm sure you two know, but for our listeners, if you don't know Night of the Lepus, first of all, it's getting a Blu-ray from Scream Factory. God bless those beautiful people. But it's killer rabbits. So it's basically someone saw the end of Monty Python and the Holy Grail and went, fuck, man, we need to turn that into a feature length. And it stars Doc from Star Trek. It's utterly ridiculous. There's so many shots of where they clearly enlarge just shots of rabbits. There's a few scenes where it's very clearly a man in a rabbit suit, and it's such a terrible movie, but it's so much fun. It's so much fun. It's very much so good for an at-home self MST3K viewing.
Well, speaking of at-home MST3K viewings, have you guys both seen Roar?
Yes.
Oh God, Roar! Oh my God,
infamous movie where how many crew members and cast members were mauled by lions?
I think all of them. I think everybody at some point. You can find online pictures of the cinematographer's head. He got scalped by one of the lions, and Melanie Griffith got bit on the leg. For those of you who don't know, Roar, it was basically they used a bunch of real lions and put everybody who worked on that damn movie's life in danger.
Well, it's because the creators were actually living with lions at that time, right?
Yes.
I think it was Tippi Hedren and Melanie Griffith were actually had lions in their house or something, right?
Yeah. I believe they were pet lions, but I mean, even pet lions. I mean, come on, even a pet Chihuahua bites.
Yeah, I'm just looking at a lot of the trivia for Roar on IMDb right now, and it's just wow. Apparently, it was a home movie, so it basically because they self-financed it, so it's considered one of the most expensive home movies ever made. But a lot of the attacks in it were real and actually happened. Melanie Griffith required plastic surgery, had to have 50 stitches to her face, as you said. It was feared that she would lose an eye but she recovered and wasn't disfigured from it. But still, the moment when the lion grabbed her by the hair in the movie was real and actually did happen. It just sounds like every on-set production horror story that you can hear on PA Nation happening all at once.
Do we? What are some other good when animal attacks movies? Did you ever see Tentacles?
Tentacles is good.
Tentacles is Jaws with a squid.
Yeah.
Or an octopus.
That's about all that could be said.
It was
about
an Italian mockbuster, right?
Yes, with Shelley Winters, and the most awkwardly cut boat race ever.
God, I haven't seen that movie since college. I don't remember shit from it.
But the opening scene of it, where the woman kind of like walks away from her baby carriage.
Oh yeah, the baby.
That scene is haunting. I mean, like when I was little and I saw that, I mean, I remember it was terrifying. And then when I saw it, years later, it wasn't as terrifying, but I remember at the time it really haunted me.
Now, if you guys don't mind, I want to bring up a When Animals Attack movie that I saw recently.
Let's do it.
We've been building it up for weeks.
This is going to seg us into new releases. Let's do it.
I think everyone knows how excited I have been for Rampage, and I finally fucking saw it. And let me tell you something. It is exactly what those trailers promised. And just a little bit more. Just a little bit. Like, holy crap, James, you were not lying when you were saying, like, it is dumb. It is so dumb, but you know what? Out of that comes greatness, because you could tell a good portion of the people behind making it were like, this is kind of fucking stupid, so let's have fun with it. And it was just one of the most fun experiences I've had in theaters. I mean, the trailers give a bit too much away, but oh my god, it was nonstop. Like, I know you didn't like him, James, but I loved Malin Ackerman and her brother in that movie. They were just like this over the top cheesy villains that we don't get to see anymore. It's
not that I didn't like them. I loved them for exactly the reason you did. Malin Ackerman, I said it before, I think she looked at the script, saw her lines, and went, there's no way this is going to be taken seriously, so I'm not going to. And she just, like, gnaws on every stick of scenery that she can
it's
find.
Beautiful.
It is.
And they had a scene where the gorilla eats a woman at the top of a building. You have no idea how loud I cheered at that bit. Like, I was just like, yes, they fucking did it. They fucking did exactly what I wanted. But not only that, just like there was so much in it that just like the whole opening. If you haven't seen the movie, some slight spoilers. The whole opening takes place on a space station owned by this company that's been doing evil shit. They're basically creating the genetic stuff that causes George and the other two to get big. And something goes wrong on the space station, so it starts crashing, and you're like, what's going on? And then Malin Ackerman's character is like, you got to get the specimens off the ship. We got to have our research, our data. And they go, what about the rat? And they're like, it is the rat destroying it. And what happens is, like, these first 5 minutes are really trying to do an homage, but also try to be inspired by Alien. There's a lot of shots and bits in that opening where it's trying to be Alien, but it's with a fucking mutant rat, and it's so ridiculous, and it just sets the tone perfectly where it's like, I can't take this movie too serious. But I will say this, it's surprising that Andy Serkis wasn't involved with this, because the CGI acting, especially with George, was phenomenal. The guy who actually played him has been in a few CGI things, and he might be, kind of like the younger Andy Serkis at this point.
Well, we went into it before his name. I think his name is Jason Lyles. Maybe a lot of his credits are things like he was the Crooked Man Shadow.
Right.
And he actually, I kind of want to see if that's actually what his. Yeah, it is Jason Lyles. And he has a lot of credits that are like creature, monster, things like that. So he is. I don't know how much of it is motion capture or how much of it is like a Doug Jones kind of thing where he's in a costume.
Right.
But he is a professional monster. And
they did a phenomenal job. Like, George, honestly, it sounds ridiculous, but it is a fucking ridiculous movie. But George was kind of like that bit, just the fact that they instilled so much humanity in him and the performance and how they acted. They were like, when George is being really affected by the stuff that makes him big and is going on a rampage, of course, you feel for him because you've spent so much time with this gorilla and this character that you feel like, oh man, this sucks. This isn't what George normally does. So that towards the end, when he kind of becomes himself again and starts like fighting with the Rock, which was fucking ridiculous. Like, I love that end scene. That last third act was just like so ridiculous. But overall, like, you really feel for George, and it really helps carry you throughout this really ridiculous movie where you have Joe Manganiello in it for like 2 seconds, who's like this badass ops guy who gets taken out by a wolf who, of course, can fly.
Hey, spoilers.
Yeah, I told you he was underutilized, but in case you haven't noticed, we're going to be spoiling this. You haven't seen it yet, Jacob, have you?
No, I haven't. I said, head cold.
They show most of this in the trailers, though, too. But overall, like, there's a lot of fun. And yes, there are some bits where they just kind of go sideways and you just see a wolf and a giant gorilla just start smashing the shit out of some buildings, true Rampage style. And yes, is it going to be remembered? Probably not. Is it a great film? No. But you know what? If you saw that trailer and went, that looks like fun, go see it. It is a lot of fun. It's dumb fun. Maybe have a few drinks or a few tokes before you go see it, because it's just all around. If you want to see some giant mutant animals attack a city, you get it. You definitely get a lot of it.
Well, I have a few that I'll go through quickly because I think I may be the only one who's seen them. Last night I was at a screening of a movie called The Endless, which is the guys who made Spring and Resolution. It's their new movie. And it's actually pretty terrific. It's about these two brothers who left a cult years before, and for some reason one of them wanted to go back to, what it is, they get a videotape in the mail that has some stuff on it, and he's like, we need to go back and check this out. So they go, and of course strange things happen. But it's really funny because all I'm going to say is it's better if you are familiar with with these guys. I think Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead, I believe, are their names. If you're familiar with Spring and Resolution, you're gonna love that. You're gonna just laugh your head off at parts of this because it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I was a big fan of those movies, so it's been on my list.
It's definitely worth tracking down. And another one that is definitely worth tracking down is I saw Ghost Stories.
Oh, how was that?
That is great. The basic premise of it is there's a professional debunker. He's kind of one of those Amazing Randy guys who likes to expose these phony psychics who take people's money and claim that they're talking to their dead relatives. And he meets up with this other professional debunker who's on his deathbed, and this guy says to him, "Here are these 3 cases that I could never solve." He says, please look into these, come up with rational explanations for them so that I can die knowing that there is no afterlife. He wants to just die and become worm food, but these 3 cases are making him believe in the afterlife. So it's kind of an anthology. It goes through these 3 cases, and it's pretty terrific. It's full of jump scares, and it's just really well built. And then at one point, it takes kind of a left turn where it doesn't become about these cases, it becomes about the debunker. It's great. It's, I don't really want to say too much about it because it's real good. And another one I'm just going to touch on really quickly because it's not horror at all. Tyler Perry's Acrimony.
Oh. Are you about to recommend a Tyler Perry movie?
No. Well, I'm about to recommend the last 20 minutes of a Tyler Perry movie. Here's the thing. Because this was a Movie Pass dice roll. And so I went, and for the first probably half of it, it's a 2-hour movie. For the first hour, I was thinking I made a horrible mistake. I'm like, no, why didn't I go see Love, Simon again or something that I know I'm going to like? But then at some point, because it's about a woman who, the very first scene, she's in court and her ex-husband is getting her restraining order against her, and she's sent to anger management, and she's relating to a therapist her entire relationship with this guy. And every character in this movie is completely unlikable. I mean, you want to slap every one of them. But then it gets to a point about 3/4 of the way through where it turns into American Psycho, and it is so it's like it stops being stupid and it starts being just totally fun. And that's when I was like, okay, I did make the right decision.
Mm-hmm. So it's a Movie Pass viewing. It's you got nothing to do on a Tuesday night, take your significant other, have a little bit of fun with it type recommendation.
It's if you see it late at night on HBO type viewing.
Okay.
But
how late?
Well, not too late because you have to watch it till the end. So. Yeah, and even then, it's really only fun at the end. So anyway, we've spent too much time talking about Tyler Perry's Acrimony already.
Now to talk about one of the other big movies of the week.
Before we get into that, I just want to recommend, have you guys seen Wild Wild America or Wild Wild Country?
I've heard about that. It's on Netflix about the cult, right?
Yeah. So I just want to talk about that real quick because I just binge watched like the whole thing yesterday. But to go off James's, movie about cults and stuff, Netflix just put on a new docuseries called Wild Wild Country, which is all about the Rajneesh cult in Oregon. And while it's not particularly horror, cults are definitely something that's a massive fascination with me. As we discussed, we were live from Waco a few weeks back with our second episode. So it's very interesting. It's executive produced by the Duplass brothers, and it's just a really well-made docuseries that has like a lot of twists and turns. And the less that's said of what happens in it, the better, because I knew nothing about this. I didn't realize that it was such a big story when it came out, but it's very interesting to check out. So I always would highly recommend that. It's on Netflix right now, Wild Wild Country.
Is it a series or is it an actual movie?
It's a series. There's about 6 or 8 episodes.
Okay.
And they do a really good job of giving both sides their time to talk. And they actually have like one of the most prominent characters in the story on the cult side talking through it. And they have 2 major members of it talking about it, as well as Department of Justice heads and senators. But it's a crazy story about like a cult who just wanted to start like their own little city in the ranch in like the middle of nowhere, Oregon, and their interactions with the creator of Nike, how that eventually turned into like a federal case of like a radical group trying to take over Oregon. It's very, very interesting with multiple twists and turns, and you kind of I kind of left it. I still have one episode left to finish, but you're kind of left wondering, like, who. It's like anything. Who is in the right here? Who was? Well, there's no definite good or bad side with it. It's very interesting.
All right. Let's talk about A Quiet Place.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. Quiet Place. My expectations were pretty low. After the trailers and stuff, I don't know. Well, I mean, I don't think low, but like I wasn't expecting it to be such a huge hit. And also just a really good horror movie from John Krasinski, who not only directed it, but co-wrote it and stars in it. So he's really, doing the whole Renaissance thing. And yeah, okay, so I guess before we go too deep into it, we may talk about some stuff that are spoilers, so just be careful coming and listening to this.
This whole episode is full of spoilers. We'll just call
we should put that in the description.
Episode 4, the spoilers.
The spoilers episode. All spoilers all the time. But anyway, so starting right off, like, I want to talk about kind of like when we talk about animal attacks, just the creatures in this movie were really well done. There was a CG, but there were some practical effects in there, especially when they do kind of the focus and close-ups on these creatures. And yeah, it's just really weird because this movie's also like one of the ultimate examples of showing and not telling, because for one thing, like you can't really tell too much about the story because nobody talks. So, or nobody really talks. So, we don't get a whole lot of background, so you have to kind of do your own sleuthing and like look at background stuff from the scenes. Like there's some newspaper clippings at the back that talk about like a meteor crash and like kind of build up of events. But yeah, the monsters are really freaky because they're like these like giant kind of flesh cockroach things without without bodily features, except they got huge fucking mouths with lots and lots of teeth and razor sharp claws. So like it's very simplified, but it's like don't need to go too fancy with it. It's just these are literal killing machines, and if they hear you, they will hunt you down and kill you.
They have huge ears too, and it shows them. They'll open up their ears, and you see. I mean that was the creepy part for me is like when it opens its ears, you're like, okay, that's why it can hear you.
Yeah, because it was like it would expose its inner ear. Like, I'm not sure how close they base it on, but yeah, it was really gross because it was basically like its head would open and you look at the inner workings of like its radar-like ears and throbbing and stuff.
No, it was fantastic world building because again, there's a lot of ASL in it, sign language for them to talk, but like you said, newspaper clippings, even just like how the land was set up. There's sand where they walk, lights that change to show like, oh no, emergency. There's this one, what I thought was phenomenal part where John Krasinski's character lights a torch or something at the top of corn tower on his farm, and then you see other lights across the valley light up. So it's a very subtle way of saying they're not alone. They're not the only ones. There's other people who are living these type of lives. And I thought that was some really fantastic acting overall in the film. But also the world building is what blew me away was a fully realized scenario with rules very clearly set up and played out. Without taking away from the emotion.
They're playing Monopoly with little felt and cotton pieces instead of the pewter and plastic because, you can't have it. You can't have it tip. I mean, you could tell how long, they had been doing it for a year and a half, and you could tell that it was just second nature to them. They didn't question why their hotel was a little cotton ball in playing Monopoly. So, it's... Yeah, they did a good job at establishing the actual world.
The amount of detail was phenomenal, and it's definitely one of those films that it didn't, there was a lot of detail in it, but you also weren't kept up in it. It wasn't just, oh, well, what about this in there? Oh, well, what about this? You know how some movies do that where you're like, oh, these rules have been set up. What about this? What about that? Like with Purge, where you're just constantly thinking, well, murder is legal, but what about tax evasion, stuff like that. You're really just like in the moment and with them the entire time. So
I never thought of that. If people doing other things that when all laws are suspended, why don't people just not pay their
Oh man, don't get me started on that drunk.
Yeah, we could do a whole show around that one. So
yeah, you can
maybe future episode.
That's when you're allowed to pirate Ash vs. Evil's Dead. Is when
during the Purge.
On the night of the Purge. Binge the whole thing on Putlocker or whatever.
Even then, that's too much. Go out and purge out in the streets. Don't steal Ash vs. Evil Dead on Purge night, you dicks. But no, I love this film. I know James and Jacob and I have talked quite a bit about it. I mean, the acting, the cinematography, the script, just all around was pretty phenomenal, especially as we discussed John Krasinski's first big feature direction. I mean, what a way to start off that part of his career. But one thing I want to touch upon, and if that's all right with you guys, is this week's topic is hype.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's what I think that I'm going to have an issue with you right here because you didn't think A Quiet Place lived up to the hype.
Well, that's the hard thing about talking about this and why I spent a few days mulling over it. Basically what we want to address is something that we've brought up a few times, with seeing trailers that show too much or talking about things. And if one thing our viewers can realize at this point is me, Korea, doesn't see things right away. Sometimes I see it a few weeks after, generally when things start to peter off. But by that point, everyone has an opinion on things. And so I was the last person to see A Quiet Place out of the three of us. And by the time I saw it, everyone was, ranting, oh my God, it's so scary. It's terrifying. You're on the edge of your seats. Even when I was in the theater, I was like, hey guys, I'm about to see A Quiet Place. I don't think kettle chips were the best snack to go with. And James is saying stuff like, you won't even remember it's there. Well, and I get that. But all that is hype. And again, I loved A Quiet Place. I thought it was fantastic, but I don't have the same experience as you guys because I went in going, oh my God, it's going to be so intense. I'm going to be on the edge of my seat. I still enjoyed the film, but at the same time, I was a bit taken out of it because I just had such high expectations for it that were stuff that it could not live up to. Again, still fantastic film. Absolutely love it. But my experience was kind of a bit hindered. And it's not James's fault. It's not Jacob's fault. It's not really anybody's fault. But there was just times where I'm sitting there. I'm like, oh, here comes the part where she's in the tub and she's preggers, from the trailer, because the trailer showed way too much. Or this other bit. There's also a few bits, spoilers, of course. We're going to keep saying spoilers when this stuff comes up, but towards the end, because the creatures, their faces would open up to hear things, and I was sitting there going, well, they clearly show on a board that they're armored, but in that moment they're not armored, so why doesn't she just, I was so taken out of it that I was thinking too far ahead. I'm like, why doesn't she just use a shotgun? And they don't use the shotgun until it's appropriate, for the tension of the film. There's a few parts where I was like, you're starting to Walking Dead yourself, where it's like, come on, just do the common sense, smart thing right now. Stop movie trying to make suspense out of nothing. And again, it's not a knock against the movie, or maybe it is. You can take it however you want, but it's just with the hype machines, it happens, where someone tells you it's a scary. Who hasn't seen on Facebook little memes where it's like, oh, Netflix almost banned this movie because it's so terrifying, no one can finish it, and then you watch it and you're like, well, I was bored out of my fucking mind.
The worst thing, and you see this every year, it seems like you see this with a different movie, scarier than The Exorcist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like this has been a recurring trend for the past few years. I'm thinking, like every year there's this type of movie. Like 2013, it was The Babadook. 2014, it was It Follows. 2015, The
Witch.
Oh yeah, The Witch. So it's like every year there's like one movie that it was like, oh, it's the scariest thing you'll ever see in your entire life, and they just build it up and build it up, and of course it doesn't live up to the hype for a lot of people because they built it up too much.
Well, I think The Witch is a perfect example of this because it premiered at I might have been Sundance or whatever festival it premiered at, and the buzz was huge coming out of it. And then they started showing it for critics, and that's when everybody, critics were going crazy for The Witch. They were loving it. And then when it finally hit, mainstream release, a lot of the fans, I think they were expecting a different movie. They were expecting something. They weren't expecting a slow burn period piece that basically is more dread and suspense than actual scares. So there was a huge backlash against The Witch. And I personally loved The Witch, but I also didn't get hit by that hype train because I saw it a good 3 weeks before general release.
No, and that's what happened to me with A Quiet Place. Again, it was very effective. I can't praise that movie enough, but at the same time, also, the theater I saw it at had the AC running, and it was such a quiet movie. I've never heard the AC in a theater so predominantly. Like, I was telling James and Jacob this after I saw it. I was like, I kind of wish the theater had just said, hey, we're shutting off the AC because it's a quiet movie. And even if we were just sitting there sweating our tits off, it would have added to it, just an uncomfortableness to it. It would have been some really good showmanship. But, I mean, I can't expect major chain theater to do stuff like that. That sounds like something a smaller theater would do. I would do that if I managed a theater. Just go, we're showing Quiet Place, we're shutting off the AC, there's going to be no sound whatsoever.
When the second time I saw Quiet Place, there was the cleaning crew for the theater next door was in the hallway talking like super loud. And if you were seeing something like Black Panther or Rampage, it wouldn't matter because, there's explosions and, fighting going on. And I almost felt like getting up and going out there and opening it and going, hey guys, this is a quiet place in here. We can hear every word you're saying and you're kind of ruining it for us.
You should have.
So
I'm one of those guys that would complain.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, when it comes to that, I mean, James, you've brought it up a few times with Hereditary, how we've been avoiding the trailers for Hereditary. I saw the trailer once in a theater, and ever since then I've been putting my hands over my ears, going la 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 whenever it plays, because I want to try to keep as much for myself from it as possible. And it's a modern complaint, but too many trailers show too much. It's like, just give us a little bit of a taste. Even some movies, like A Quiet Place, that first trailer they dropped barely showed anything. It just showed we're in a world where there's something out there hunting people that goes by sound. It's like, that's terrifying. I would die so quickly because I'd slip on some mud, shout, fuck my dick, and then instantly be killed. I know that for fact. And so just give us the simplicity of it. Show us some cool shots. Stop showing us the whole thing. Like Rampage. Well, I'm bringing it back to Rampage. The entire movie, they kind of tease the alligator throughout the whole bit. And they fully show him at the end of the trailer. So the entire movie, when they're teasing the alligator coming in, you already know, oh, there's going to be a giant alligator coming in to attack too. So it's not as suspenseful as it should be. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the big problem is, on two fronts. For one thing, that the marketing department of movies is far different and disconnected from the filmmaking side of that. So I don't think they really have as much a say into what goes into marketing. So a lot of times it feels like stuff is spoiled because they think, if we show this really cool thing from the movie, it'll make people want to go see the movie more, even though it spoils whatever part of the movie. So, it's definitely that kind of dynamic that is probably a problem in regards to that.
Directors have come out and said, don't watch the trailer for my movie. Just go see it. I think Doug Jones said it about Mute, and there's been a few others who have come out on Twitter saying, don't watch the trailer. Just watch the movie. Trust me on this. It spoils too much. And, some of the greatest trailers that I can think of off the top of my head showed no footage from the movie. I'm talking the Back to the Future with Marty just getting into the car and they're going, how far are you going? He's like, about 30 years. And then cue Huey Lewis. That was fantastic. The trailer for The Shining. Yeah, it showed some footage. It showed an extended cut of like a 2-second clip from The Shining. But that was dreadful. The whole blood coming out of the elevator teaser for it, that was phenomenal. Even The Dark Knight had a great teaser where it's just audio.
Jason Takes Manhattan, where it's just Jason's back, and it's like, I think it starts spreading the news, or there's some song, and then he turns around, and you're like,
Frank Sinatra singing New York, New York, or Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, that whole Excalibur bit where he goes to the lake and it comes out. It's one of the greatest trailers ever. The movie didn't live up to it, but none of those trailers had actual footage from the movie, and if they did, it was like the smallest bit, and it still sold the concept of the movie. It still sold what was going on, and it still got me. Just thinking of that Shining trailer makes me want to watch it again.
I'm really afraid that Hereditary is going to be this year's The Witch, or It Follows, because it is getting a lot of hype out of the festival circuit, and that's part of the reason why I don't want to see anything about this movie before I see it, because I don't want to buy into the hype. Because if it really is as good as people say it is, I want it to be another The Witch. I loved It Follows, but a lot of people, I think, bought into the hype before they saw the movie and were disappointed. I think that's what it is. I think when expectations are raised too high, and that's probably why I avoid trailers, because I don't even want the expectation bar to be set, let alone raised or lowered.
No, and of course, and I think one movie that's been doing a really good job of getting people hyped without, because remember, we discussed this with Thoroughbreds. I was too hyped for the next American Psycho, Heather's Crossbreed, and it wasn't that at all. But I mean, the new Marvel Avengers movie, they're doing a fantastic job of showing almost nothing. Like, they're keeping it so secretive. And I feel like that's how it feels like it's almost like they have the budget to be able to do that. And lower budget films, they need to show as much as possible to get people hooked. But the thing is if you have a solid movie and a solid concept, just show enough to get people hooked on it and then get out. Like, we don't need 3-minute trailers. We don't need 2.5-minute trailers. Some of the best trailers I can think of are a minute long. Just show us enough to get us the basic concept, or even just a little bit of the overall theme, and get the fuck out.
Yep, less is more.
Absolutely.
Take it from Jaws, right? That's the whole thing with Jaws.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
A lot of callbacks today. So what's the moral of today? Don't spoil stuff. Don't overhype stuff.
And don't pirate.
Don't pirate. Watch your fucking favorite shows on legal channels of watching it, and go see Rampage.
Yeah, I mean, as far as that hype train go, I mean, like I touched on it before. I mean, how often do you see Scarier Than the Exorcist? And nothing is well. Honestly, it kind of depends on what is scary to you. For me personally, not being brought up Catholic, The Exorcist, there are scarier movies. Jaws probably scared me more than The Exorcist.
I'm with you on that.
Ghost scared me more than The Exorcist.
Ghost?
Yeah.
Patrick Swayze.
You mean
Ghost?
Patrick Swayze and Demi Moore?
Yeah, that's a story for another episode, but I will fully admit that as a child, Ghost scared me more than Exorcist.
To be continued.
Large Marge scared me, so there you go. There's an episode in there somewhere.
Yeah, we got to be continued. But no, just like I'm with you on that, James. Just I feel like just people try to hype up like a modern horror movie by trying to say it's better than what people would consider to be the standard. Like, oh, it's scarier than The Exorcist. Oh, it's scarier than Poltergeist. It's scarier than it's so and so. And again, I feel like it's a big problem is that if you hype something up too much, it's not going to meet people's expectations,
and that's just going to hinder it overall. Not only with people's experiences, but also in the box office.
So what is it the Jim Blossom say? If you don't expect too much from me, you might not be let down.
Yeah, it's true.
And there's my random pop culture reference for the day.
We'll make that a regular item.
Yeah, exactly my thing.
James' random pop culture reference of the day.
I could do it. All right, let's start sign off. One thing that we thought of where right before we hit record here is, in case any of you guys care about to know where to find us, we're going to give you our Twitter handles. I am at Cinema Fearite. It's like verite, but with fear. So it's cinema and then FEARITE. That's where you can find me on the Twitters. How about you, Jacob?
My Twitter handle is at Jacob Davison _ That's at JACOBDAVISON, one word, then underscore, all one word, because all the other jerk Jacob Davison stole all the good Jacob Davison handles.
Well, for me, mine's just simply Korean barbecue. So it's spelled like my last name, CORREIANBBQ. Because I don't know, I found it humorous, and no other Koreas took it. So,
and you can pretty much find all of us at iHorror News, which is the iHorror Twitter, which also is the website that makes this podcast possible. The rock that let us in and leads us out is Death Metal Pope, or DMP, so check them out. And our artwork is Chris Fisher, who actually, we need to give him a shout out because he designed a poster for, it's a documentary about Jason Goes to Hell, of all things.
The Last Friday, right? Or the making of the
final
Friday?
Yeah, the final Friday, yeah.
Yeah.
And it looks great. So when you see that come out, you know who did the art. It's that's exciting. So we'll see you in another couple weeks. For me, James J. Edwards.
And this is Jacob Davison.
And this is Jonathan Correa.
Keep your eye on horror. We'll see you next time.